everyone, I'm Carolyn. Welcome back to another episode of As I See It. Today I want to talk about cleaning up messes. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that so many Democratic presidents have to come into office and clean up the mess of their Republican predecessor. And what specifically annoys me about this is that in the first year of their presidency, they are left with a ravaged economy. In Biden's case, a public health crisis we've never seen before. And everything that happens is blamed on the Democrat. The Republican is blaming Biden for bad policies of Donald Trump. But it didn't just start here. So I want to go back a little bit and talk about all the messes Democrats have had to clean up of Republican presidents. Because maybe some people don't know this or haven't paid attention or just choose to they don't want to hear it. But here's a fact. Ever since the 1930s and Herbert Hoover's horrific economic policies, banking deregulation, because we don't need big government. So let's just let the banks run amok. What did that cause? A stock market crash and the Great Depression, which Roosevelt had to come in and clean up. By the time Roosevelt came into office after Hoover, the economy, the Great Depression, it was decimated. We had people starving in the streets. There were no jobs. People didn't have places to live. They didn't have food to eat. And it was only through the socialist New Deal that we were able to bring the economy and the country back. And boy, it was fought. People fought Roosevelt like crazy, calling him a socialist. And it was actually the end of the Socialist Party. And I think I did another video on that. I'll have to put a link up here. I talked about that. Oh yeah, my video about socialism and what socialism is, I talked about that. I'll put a link up here. So that's the first example in modern history of when a Democrat had to come into office and clean up a Republican's mess. Let's fast forward to George Bush Sr., George H.W. Bush. During his presidency, he got us involved in a costly and deadly Gulf War, and by the time he left, over 8 years, he left us in a recession. And yet another Republican who left the economy and the United States in a recession. Bill Clinton came in his first year of office because of this big, huge recession and all the horrible economic policies. Well, yeah, I didn't even include Reagan in this and his false trickle-down economic theory, that doesn't work. Proven time and time again that it doesn't work. But Clinton came in, inherited all of the horrible effects of Bush's bad policies. In Clinton's first year of office, the national debt rose to an all-time high, 49.5% of gross domestic product, GDP. Yeah. And who got blamed for that? Oh my God, he's a terror. See, we should have never elected the Democrats. Oh, see, the Democrats, they raise your taxes and, oh my God. But what they failed to see is it would have rose anyway. It rose because of the effects of the previous administration. And in fact, by the time Clinton left office, he had the national debt down to an all-time low, 34.5% of GDP. He left a healthy, robust economy that was creating jobs, wages were rising. He created all of that despite the mess that was left to him. He turned that mess around. And he left us a robust, healthy economy. And what happened? We got George Bush Jr. Yeah, we all know what happened there, right? Well, he got us into another war. Surprise, surprise. Got us into a war under false pretenses. Remember weapons of mass destruction? So we invaded Iraq. We ended up in a 20-year war in Afghanistan. And guess what? Within just a few years, George Bush got us into the greatest recession since the Great Depression. The collapse of 2008, 2009 caused, again, another Republican economic disaster. Once again, a Democratic president inherited a Republican recession. That's what Obama had to deal with. It's part of the reason Democrats won It's kind of funny. It seems many Republicans get voted for 2 terms. They screw everything up, and then the society's like, you've screwed everything up, and so they vote a Democrat. Why? Why? Imagine if we didn't have those 8 years of Republican messing everything up. Imagine if we had steady Democratic presidents the whole time. Imagine where we could be today. But no, George W. Bush left us George Bush Jr. left us in a horrible, horrible recession. Obama inherited it. And of course, Obama got blamed. Oh my gosh, the worst economy. I remember, this is the worst economy since the Great Depression. Yeah, because he inherited the worst economy since the Great Depression. And sure, growth was slow. Growth was really slow during the Obama administration, and we all wanted it to be a little faster. And maybe there were some policy things that could have been different there. But he didn't leave us in a recession. In fact, the Obama's economy had higher growth than Trump's, a higher growth rate than Trump's, even before coronavirus. So once again, a Democratic president brought us out of the mess left by the previous Republican. People forget, apparently, I don't know, or think that they didn't do enough to recover the mess of the previous administration, and they vote in another Republican. And this one was a doozy. He's not even really a Republican. So what did Trump do? Slower job growth, slower economic growth, unnecessary trade wars that raised prices, increased inflation, and oversaw the worst national health crisis in our history, I think. More than 400,000 people died under his watch. And when Biden took over, people were still dying. We had just gotten the vaccine. People are still dying. And why are people still dying? Because the previous Republican elected representative told people not to trust doctors, the CDC, the government, public health officials. Boy, this one left a doozy. Not only did he leave behind the effects of bad policy, he left behind a vacuum of lies and misinformation. And he left behind millions in our population who don't believe the truth. And this is what Joe Biden has to contend with. Talk about a mess. I think if you measure all the messes Democratic presidents have had to clean up, I think this is the worst. Not only does he have to clean up the mess of a grossly mishandled public health crisis, he now is dealing with Afghanistan. People want to impeach him for withdrawing from a 20-year war. I don't understand what the impeachable offense is there. But let's talk about everything that's happened in Afghanistan in the last couple of weeks. Trump met with the Taliban. Trump and his people, Pompeo, met with the Taliban and made a deal with them face to face over Afghanistan. But Trump administration and the Taliban met to discuss Afghanistan without including Afghanistan. Does that make any sense to you? How rude and poor policy and decision making is it to meet over a country and not involve that country? So Trump walked away. In addition to that meeting with the Taliban, he negotiated the release of, I don't know how many, dozens of Taliban's highest officers and fighters. He released Taliban's top killers, top officers, as part of this deal. And you want to blame Joe Biden for what's going on there? Are you kidding me? Our FBI and CIA spent decades trying to round up these people and put them in jail for crimes against humanity. Trump releases them. Biden follows through on a deal, on a treaty the former administration made with the Taliban. Joe Biden's like, America, we have to stand by our word, even if it was made by a crazy man. And we need to get out because we've been there 20 years. Enough people have died. We're spending enough money. It's time for us to get out and for Afghanistan to stand on their own. Was it done well? No. I think it could have been done a lot better. But to blame Biden for this mess is short-sighted and willfully ignorant. Trump garnered this deal. Trump is the one who promised the Taliban we would be out. He said May 1st. Biden didn't feel ready on May 1st. He was like, we're not ready. No, we're not ready. We need to extend this. He took 3 or 4 more months to prepare to get us out. Keeping in mind that there are Americans there and there are allies there who helped us and wanting to get them out safely. Let me reiterate. Donald Trump garnered a deal with the Taliban without including Afghanistan, and part of that deal was to release some of the biggest, most influential members of the Taliban, who are now free. And you're blaming Joe Biden for the mess? How can you blame Joe Biden for this mess? Like I said, could it have been handled better? I don't know, but I'm not a security expert. I'm not CIA, I'm not FBI, I don't know. I don't know what talks were happening. I also don't know what Joe Biden didn't know. You know where I'm going with that? Mike Pompeo, on behalf of President Trump, met with the Taliban face-to-face. President Trump made deals with the Taliban to release some of their people. It seems to me that there's a relationship there, right? Who knows what conversations took place once Trump realized he wasn't going to be the one in office when the withdrawal was complete. Who knows what talks have gone on behind the scenes between Trump and the Taliban to sabotage Biden's efforts. Here's another thing you may not know, or you may. When Afghani politicians and leaders learned of the deal that Trump and the Taliban made basically behind their backs for their country, they knew. It was a ticking time bomb. They knew. They knew that they couldn't fight the Taliban. They weren't included in this deal. They knew the Taliban was going to take over, so many of the elected officials in both localities and nationally just started making deals with the Taliban. That's why Afghanistan fell so quickly. They knew they didn't have a fighting chance, and so many of the people's government officials sold them out, made deals, or just took everything, all the booty, all the money, all the riches, everything, all the corrupt people had amassed. They just took it and ran. They abandoned their people. That's what happened when you don't include a country in talks about the fate of their country. That's all on Trump. Afghanistan fell so quickly because of the absolutely abhorrent negotiation skills of Trump. He made a deal. Biden followed through with that deal. And the fallout that we're seeing is a response to the horrible deal and not to what Biden has done. Once again, we have a Democratic president cleaning up the mess of his Republican predecessor. It's been a trend throughout modern history, and it continues to be a trend. International relations messes. We have a pandemic mess. We have an economic mess. We have 70-something million people who voted for Donald Trump who don't believe science, who don't believe fact, who don't believe courts, who don't believe doctors, who just choose to believe an alternate reality that some pillow guy is pushing. Or some talking head pundit. Who am I? Who am I? Can you guess who I am? Well, so what is the nationalist? I'm the fucking Tucker Carlson. So, yeah, Joe Biden is left with a mess. His first year in office is probably gonna be a mess. Is he perfect? No. Do you expect? See, that's the other thing. I don't expect my president to be perfect. I expect him to do his best in good faith, to do his best, believing that he is doing what is best for the American people. That I don't have that. I've never had that faith, actually, frankly, in any Republican candidate, and especially in the last one. How can you watch someone who all his life has looked out for nobody but number one and think that he's going to look out for you versus someone who has given their life to public service? So that's my talk today, that we have another Democratic president who has been left with a disaster. It's going to take time. Those of us who voted for him, I know I get frustrated, and why haven't you ended the filibuster? Why haven't you done this? Why voting rights, and why didn't you handle Afghanistan better? And I can't believe how bad the media is treating this. I mean, and without talking about the fact that it was set up both on the up and up and maybe behind the scenes. It was set up by the former guy. I really believe Biden has been set up to fail. I do believe that. I believe that there's stuff going on. Trump has relationships with international leaders of this sort. I wouldn't be at all surprised to learn that he has colluded with the Taliban to set Biden up for failure. Another mess Democrats have to clean up. And if the country even has an ounce of what it used to have left in it, he'll do 8 years. We'll come out the other side. Things will be better. And we'll vote in another. We won't. Some of the people will. Vote in another Republican to trash it. And we'll just have to pick up the pieces once again. So be patient with Biden. He's dealing with a lot. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Did I cover everything? And let me know what you're thinking. I know things feel really messy right now. They are, because we're always left with their messes. See you next time. Take care.